What happens when a late-night television host decides to ambush a guest with the most personal and painful moments of their life, all in the name of ratings? What happens when that guest is Prince Harry and the host is Stephen Colbert, armed with a smirk and zero boundaries? Tonight, we dive into one of the most explosive television moments that most people never got to see, because it never made it to air. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below telling me what you think really happened behind the scenes. Your engagement keeps these stories coming. The atmosphere in Studio 57 was electric that evening. Prince Harry had agreed to appear on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert to discuss his charitable work and upcoming projects. What he didn't expect was to walk into what felt more like an interrogation than an interview. The cameras were rolling, the audience was primed, and Stephen Colbert had that familiar gleam in his eye, the one that usually meant he was about to go for the jugular. "Your Royal Highness," Colbert began with an exaggerated bow that immediately set a mocking tone. "Or should I say, just Harry now? I mean, you did give up all those fancy titles, didn't you? Along with everything else." Harry shifted uncomfortably in his chair, forcing a diplomatic smile. "Stephen, I'm here to talk about the Invictus Games and the mental health initiatives we're launching this year. I think your audience would be really interested in hearing about the incredible work these veterans are doing." "Oh, we'll get to that," Colbert waved dismissively. "But first, let's talk about what everyone really wants to know. The family drama, the tell-all interviews, the Netflix deals. I mean, you've really made a career out of airing dirty laundry, haven't you?" The audience laughed, but there was an uncomfortable edge to it. Harry's jaw tightened slightly, though he maintained his composure. "I think there's been a lot of misunderstanding about my motivations. Everything I've done has been to protect my family and to use my platform for good." "Protect your family?" Colbert leaned forward with theatrical incredulity. "By writing a book calling your brother your arch-nemesis? By doing interview after interview talking about how terrible your life was in the palace? That's protection?" "That's taken completely out of context," Harry replied, his voice still measured but with a growing tension. "The book was about my journey, my struggles with mental health, and finding my own path. It wasn't an attack on anyone." Colbert chuckled, but it wasn't warm. "Right. And I'm sure when you described your stepmother as the other woman and dangerous, that was just, what, therapy?" The studio fell noticeably quieter. Even the usually responsive audience seemed to sense they were witnessing something uncomfortable. Harry's diplomatic facade was beginning to crack. "Stephen, I came here in good faith to discuss important causes that are making a real difference in people's lives. If you want to have a serious conversation about the work we're doing, I'm happy to continue. But I won't sit here and be ambushed with deliberate mischaracterizations of my family situation." "Ambushed?" Colbert's eyebrows shot up in mock surprise. "This is television, Harry. This is what we do. We ask the questions people want answered. And right now, people want to know why a grown man is still complaining about his daddy not hugging him enough." The audience gasped audibly. Several people could be heard murmuring uncomfortably. Harry's hands gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles visibly whitening. "Excuse me?" Harry's voice was now dangerously quiet. "Oh, come on," Colbert pressed on, seemingly energized by getting a reaction. "The whole, I never got the emotional support I needed narrative. The nobody understood my grief storyline. You were a prince, Harry. You had every privilege imaginable, and you're still out here acting like you were some kind of victim." Harry stood up abruptly, his chair rolling back slightly. "That's enough." "Oh no, we're just getting started," Colbert grinned, clearly enjoying the confrontation. "Sit back down, Your Highness. We've got commercial breaks to fill, and I've got so many more questions about your victim complex." "My victim complex?" Harry's voice rose for the first time. "You think losing your mother at 12 years old and being forced to walk behind her coffin while the world watched is a victim complex?" The studio was now dead silent. Even Colbert seemed momentarily taken aback by the raw emotion in Harry's voice, but he quickly recovered, his smile returning. "Well, that's certainly tragic," Colbert said with exaggerated sympathy. "But lots of people lose parents and don't spend the next 25 years making it everyone else's problem." That was the moment everything changed. Harry's face went completely pale, then flushed with anger. His voice, when he spoke, was barely controlled. "How dare you?" The words came out like a growl. "How dare you sit there and trivialize the loss of a child's mother for your entertainment?" Colbert, perhaps realizing he had pushed too far but unable to back down now, doubled down with his trademark smirk intact. "Hey, I'm not the one who's been doing interview tours about it for years. I'm just asking the questions your audience wants answered. Isn't that what you signed up for when you became a professional royal refugee?" The words, "professional royal refugee," hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Harry took a step closer to Colbert's desk, his entire demeanor transformed from diplomatic guest to someone who had reached his absolute breaking point. "Professional royal refugee?" Harry repeated slowly, his voice now carrying a dangerous edge that made several audience members shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Is that what you think this is? Some kind of performance for your amusement?" Colbert, seemingly oblivious to the genuine fury building in front of him, leaned back in his chair with that insufferable grin still plastered across his face. "Well, if the crown fits, right? I mean, you've certainly made it profitable. Netflix deals, book deals, speaking engagements. You've turned family trauma into a brand." The camera operators were getting nervous, unsure whether to keep rolling or cut. The audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something that had gone far beyond entertainment into genuinely uncomfortable territory. "You have no idea what you're talking about," Harry said, his voice low and controlled, but vibrating with barely contained rage. "You sit here in your comfortable studio, making jokes about things you couldn't possibly understand, thinking you're clever." "Oh, I understand plenty," Colbert shot back, his tone becoming more aggressive. "I understand that some people deal with tragedy by growing from it, and others deal with it by never shutting up about it. Which category do you think you fall into, Harry?" Harry's hands were trembling now. Whether from anger or the effort to control himself, it was impossible to tell. "You want to know what I understand, Stephen? I understand that you're a bully hiding behind a desk and a laugh track. I understand, that you think other people's pain is content for your show." "Pain?" Colbert laughed, but it was harsh and mocking. "You call this pain? You're a multimillionaire living in a mansion in California, married to a beautiful woman with healthy children. What exactly are you suffering from? Relevance withdrawal?" The production staff could be seen in the background making frantic gestures, clearly wanting to cut to commercial, but Colbert waved them off. He was enjoying this too much to stop now. Harry's composure finally cracked completely. "You think money fixes everything? You think privilege erases trauma? My mother died because of people like you, Stephen. People who treated her life like entertainment, who hounded her until she couldn't breathe, who turned her children's grief into front-page news. People like me." Colbert's voice rose in mock indignation. "I'm not a paparazzi photographer, Harry. I'm a talk show host asking legitimate questions about your very public choices." "Legitimate questions?" Harry's voice was now loud enough that the microphones were picking up slight distortion. "What's legitimate about mocking a child's trauma? What's legitimate about turning someone's mental health struggles into punchlines?" Colbert stood up now too, apparently deciding to meet Harry's energy head-on. "Mental health struggles? Is that what we're calling it? Because from where I sit, it looks like you've been using your therapy sessions as material for your next tell. All special." The audience was completely frozen. Some people had their hands over their mouths in shock. Others were looking around as if trying to find the exits. This had gone so far beyond normal television that nobody seemed to know how to react. "You're disgusting," Harry said flatly. You're absolutely disgusting. You take people's worst moments and turn them into comedy bits for your ratings. Hey, that's showbiz, baby. Colbert spread his arms wide with theatrical flair. And you signed up for it the moment you decided to make your private life public. You can't sell your story and then complain when people have opinions about it. Harry stepped even closer to the desk now, close enough that security was starting to move toward the stage area. I shared my story to help other people who were struggling, to show them they weren't alone. You're using it to humiliate me for applause. And it's working great, Colbert gestured to the silent, uncomfortable audience. Look how engaged everyone is. This is the most honest television we've had in years. Honest? Harry's voice cracked slightly. You want honest? Here's honest. You're a sad man who builds his career on tearing down people who've been through more in one day than you'll experience in your entire lifetime. You hide behind comedy because you don't have the courage to be genuinely human. Colbert's smile faltered for just a moment, a flash of something that might have been hurt or anger crossing his face before the mask snapped back into place. Wow, okay. So now we're doing armchair psychology? That's rich coming from someone who literally wrote a book about his daddy issues. Harry slammed his hand down on Colbert's desk so hard that the water glasses jumped. The sound echoed through the studio like a gunshot. Stop talking about my father. Or what? Colbert challenged, leaning forward across his desk until they were almost nose to nose. What are you going to do, Harry? Storm out? Call your lawyers? Write another chapter about how mean the late-night comedian was to you? The security team was now definitely moving closer, but they seemed unsure about intervening with someone of Harry's status, especially on live television. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of what was clearly becoming television history, though not the kind anyone had planned for. Harry's breathing was audible now, short and sharp. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet but somehow more menacing than when he had been shouting. You know what the real tragedy is, Stephen? You could use this platform for something meaningful. You could actually make a difference. Instead, you choose to be a parasite feeding off other people's suffering. You're no better than the tabloids that killed my mother. The comparison to the tabloids that killed his mother hit Colbert like a physical blow. For the first time in the entire confrontation, his smug expression completely disappeared, replaced by something darker and more genuine. The studio was so quiet you could hear the hum of the air conditioning system. How dare you? Colbert said, his voice now matching Harry's deadly quiet tone. How dare you compare me to those vultures? I'm asking you questions about choices you made as a public figure. That's journalism. Journalism? Harry let out a bitter laugh that sounded nothing like humor. This isn't journalism, Stephen. This is public humiliation disguised as entertainment. You're not asking questions, you're performing cruelty for an audience. Colbert's mask was completely off now, his face flushed with anger. You want to talk about cruelty? Let's talk about what you did to your own family. Let's talk about how you dragged your father and brother through the mud on international television. Let's talk about how you made your grandmother's final years a public spectacle. The mention of his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, was clearly the final straw. Harry's face went completely white, then red with rage. Do not dare speak about my grandmother. Why not? Colbert shot back, all pretense of comedy gone. She's fair game according to your own rules, right? Nothing's off limits when it comes to the royal family trauma tour. Or are there suddenly boundaries when it's convenient for you? Harry's voice, when he responded, was barely human, more like a growl. My grandmother died knowing that her family was being torn apart by people like you, people who turn private pain into public entertainment. She died worrying about what you vultures would do next. People like me didn't write Spare, Harry, Colbert snapped. People like me didn't do the Oprah interview. People like me didn't spend years airing family business for profit. You did that all by yourself. The cameras caught every micro-expression. As Harry's face went through a series of emotions, rage, hurt, and something that looked almost like devastation. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. I shared my truth to help people heal, to show them that even princes can be broken and still find a way forward. You're using that vulnerability to score cheap points with your audience. Your truth? Colbert's voice dripped with sarcasm. Your truth has made you millions of dollars while destroying relationships with people who loved you. But sure, let's call it healing. Harry stepped back from the desk, his whole body shaking with emotion. You don't know anything about love, Stephen. Love doesn't exploit. Love doesn't mock. Love doesn't turn someone's darkest moments into punchlines for strangers. And apparently love doesn't include loyalty to the people who raised you either, Colbert fired back. But please, tell me more about what love is while you're promoting your next project about how terrible your family is. That was it. Harry had reached a place beyond anger, beyond hurt, into something that was almost frighteningly calm. You're right about one thing, Stephen. This conversation is over. He turned to walk away, but Colbert wasn't finished. Oh, you're leaving? Just like you left England when things got tough? Just like you left your family when they needed you most? That's very on brand for you, Harry. Harry stopped dead in his tracks, his back still to Colbert. The entire studio held its breath. When he turned around, his expression was unlike anything anyone had ever seen from him before, a mixture of pain and fury that was genuinely unsettling to witness. You want to know what's on brand, Stephen? What's on brand is a man who has never faced real loss, real trauma, real responsibility, sitting in judgment of someone who has lived through all three before the age of 13. What's on brand is a coward hiding behind jokes because he's too weak to face genuine human emotion. Colbert stood up straighter, his own anger now matching Harry's intensity. Weak? I've been doing this job for decades, facing criticism and controversy every single night. I don't run away when things get uncomfortable. No, Harry said, his voice now eerily calm. You just make other people uncomfortable for a living. You take their pain and turn it into your profit. You're a professional emotional vampire, Stephen, and you're too pathetic to even realize it. The production staff was in full panic mode now, making cutting motions across their throats, but neither man was paying attention to anything except each other. Get out, Colbert said suddenly, his voice cold and final. Get out of my studio. Gladly, Harry replied without missing a beat. I wouldn't want to contaminate myself any further with your particular brand of soulless entertainment. Security, Colbert called out, his voice carrying across the studio. Please escort our guest out of the building, permanently. As security approached, Harry held up his hand. Don't bother, I can find my own way out. Unlike some people, I don't need handlers to deal with basic human decency. He walked toward the exit with his head held high, but just before he reached the edge of the stage, he turned back one final time. You know what the saddest part is, Stephen? You had a chance tonight to show genuine compassion, to demonstrate real humanity to your audience. Instead, you chose to be exactly what everyone already thinks late-night television is: shallow, cruel, and ultimately meaningless. Congratulations on living down to expectations. With that, Prince Harry walked off the stage and out of the studio, leaving behind a completely stunned audience and a host who, for perhaps the first time in his career, seemed to have no clever comeback ready. The cameras kept rolling for another 30 seconds, capturing Colbert standing alone behind his desk, the smile completely gone from his face, before finally cutting to commercial. When they returned, there was no mention of what had just happened. The segment was scrubbed from broadcast, buried so deep that most people never knew it existed. But those who were there that night witnessed something unprecedented, the moment when entertainment crossed the line into genuine cruelty, and someone finally said enough. So what do you think really motivated Stephen Colbert's attack that night? Was it ratings, personal vendetta, or something else entirely? Drop your theories in the comments below, And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that the mainstream media doesn't want you to hear.